you look at prison like a chain gang. Everybody wearing the black and white stripes. They out, banging on rocks with hammers, just and they kind of singing the old songs. As far as the old Hollywood look of prison,
Right.
how accurate is that slave look, that slave feel, that slave mentality from the moment you walk in, or is it more of just a new community you're in? Like, all right, bet I'm a community, I just can't go nowhere.
Right. Now, it was definitely slavery.
Wait, hold up, did he say prison? Modern day slavery. Did I hear that right? Because that's a hell of a statement to make. And according to CEO Hockley from Prison Stories 101, it's not just a metaphor. He said it plain, prison is modern day slavery, you will pick cotton. Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear something like that, my first thought is, what could possibly make him say that? Because slavery, real slavery, was the darkest chapter in human history. We're talking buck breaking, forced human breeding, men stripped of their manhood, women treated like livestock, children torn from their mother's arms and sold to the highest bidder. That's not a figure of speech, that's horror. That's trauma written into the DNA of a people. So how could anyone compare that to prison? But then you start thinking about it. You start remembering the images, the men in jumpsuits lined up in fields working under watchtowers, the labor, the control, the dehumanization. Suddenly that statement doesn't sound so far-fetched anymore, does it? Because maybe the system never died. It just rebranded itself, different name, same function. Men still locked in cages, still working for cents on the dollar, still under someone else's command, still stripped of their freedom, their power, and sometimes their hope. So yeah, maybe CEO Hockley wasn't exaggerating after all. Today, I'm reacting to that viral Prison Stories 101 interview, the one that's got the internet arguing, the one that's making people uncomfortable, the one forcing us to ask the question America keeps dodging. Is prison really modern day slavery? Or are we too afraid to admit the truth? Let's talk about it.
I started going to jail when I was 13 to the age of 25. That's my first arrest. The longest time I've done was 8 years. I did 7 years and 3 months on an 8-year sentence in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. And I went in 1995 and I was released in 2003. I had like 9 months of parole left. For those that don't know, the units I was on was Burning Hell Unit, Clemens, and Gladiator School, Ferguson, Midway, Texas.
So first, let's focus on the fact that out of an 8-year sentence, he had to walk down almost 7.5 years before he was paroled. In most cases, inmates have to complete 1/3 of their sentence before they are eligible for parole. So if that was the case in this situation, he would have only had 2 years and 8 months before he would have been eligible for parole. In a majority of cases, parole dates aren't extended unless you're committing infractions in the prison during your sentence. These infractions could have been for almost anything such as fighting, stabbing, contraband possession, drugs, or disobeying direct orders from staff. In some cases, a lot of these infractions come things like masturbating in the view of female and even sometimes male staff. And trust me, I'm not capping or exaggerating. This is a lot more common than you'd think.
In the 90s, they had intake facilities like Holiday Unit and different units that did intake. What is that? They bring you in, they cut your hair, they take blood from you, your weight, your height, any medical condition, things like that. You go through intake so they can classify you and see where they want to put you in the system.
Okay, I must admit, this resembled the stories of slaves being cleaned up and prepped to be auctioned off. And again, before I go any further, I'm not saying that prison and inmates have no similarities to slavery. I'm here to point out how most cases it's silly to even try to compare the two.
Again, I don't know how much you knew about prisons prior. Some people have already did a couple of years, probably in the gang. As I told you, I did 2-3 years, so they probably gave you notions. But a lot of people, in the way I guess it's portrayed, is that you look at prison like a chain gang. Everybody wearing the black and white stripes. They out, banging on rocks with hammers, just and they kind of singing the old slavery songs. As far as the old Hollywood look of prison,
Right.
how accurate is that slave look, that slave feel, that slave mentality from the moment you walk in, or is it more of just a new community you're in? Like, all right, bet I'm a community, I just can't go nowhere.
All right, now this is the portion of the video that I want to focus on. So let's watch, and even more importantly, listen to how prison is viewed as modern day slavery.
Right. Now, it was definitely slavery. I mean, like I spoke before, the United States Constitution, 13th Amendment, tell you that slavery is illegal in the United States unless you're convicted of a crime. That's it. Prison is definitely slavery by all means. Now, it ain't as romantic as the chain gang to describe going to prison in the 90s. The prison in the 90s was a breeding ground. It was a breeding ground and a proving ground for all the gangsters, all the street people to prove themselves, right? It was a place where everybody within the state could meet up unknowingly and prove if they the biggest gangster or not, or prove if they set or their neighborhood is the hardest.
Listen to what he just said. The first negative thing he points out about prison has nothing to do with anyone who actually works in or running the prison. The prison violence is between inmates. This issue he just pointed out is in control fully by fellow inmates, because I want y'all to remember one thing. The individuals that actually truly run the prison are the inmates. Those inmates have the power to basically dictate whether officer makes it home at night, whether he walks out on his or her 2 feet, or they're carried out on a stretcher. Now, let's continue.
Is them old Cliff niggas really still? You know what I'm saying? It was that kind of mentality. We took it like that. When we went into the system, and it was my first time, I had no prior history of going into prison, even though I've been through juvenile and things like that. But it was a proving ground. It was a rites of passage, if you ever heard that. That's the way it was viewed. But it was definitely slavery to the highest form. Like I spoke on before, man.
Does anything that he said so far sound like or resembles actual slavery?
Was forced to pick cotton. And everybody had their own experience. But like I say, in my experience of going to prison, I was unfortunate enough to be in a situation where someone I knew from the world that I went to school with was murdered in a racial riot inside a prison. So, yeah, man, it was a terrible, terrible place, man. Terrible.
Now I've never physically picked cotton. Like I don't understand how cotton grows or works. For those who have never actually picked cotton, can you explain what is expected when you wake up, you get out there? What is a good load? What's a bad load? What's a good day of picking cotton? Actually, what is the process of picking cotton? Like gloves on? I mean, what?
Right. If you ever to your last question, you depict or referred to a movie and asked it, was it like that? And I say, the movie got it wrong as it relates to that. The movie ain't got it wrong as it relates to picking cotton. If you ever saw any slave movie or any movie where black people was forced to pick cotton, it was exactly that.
That's a pretty good comparison. And I get why a lot of people would view this as slavery. But if any of you can, point out the time white people, black people, and Hispanic people worked together, side by side, during slavery, because one thing you have to remember, that prison does not discriminate any race. White people and Hispanic people also commit crimes that leads them to prison.
Yeah, it was exactly that. Meaning you woke up and they called them hoe squads. Yeah, I was in 13 hoe on Ferguson. I was in 8 hoe on Clemens. They call them hoe squads, meaning the tool that you use to operate out here is a manual tool, and it's a garden hoe. So you got anywhere from 15 to 25 people in each squad. As it relates to cotton, though, we would wake up, go out to a trailer, get on the back of a trailer, and we would ride out to the cotton fields. And once you got to the cotton fields, I mean, it's as white as the eye. It looks like snow on the ground, but it's actually all cotton. Cotton grows out of a bud from a plant. right? So it sticks up out the ground. The plant grows buds, and then those buds blossom open. They crack open, and then what you have to do is you have to go through the plant, pulling the cotton out of the buds and putting it in the bag. They don't want the bud and the cotton; they just want the cotton, right? So you have to go through and pull those out. You definitely need gloves because those buds, as they open, they also could be thornish or sticky or things like that. But my first day, when I went to prison, nobody told me this. People said you worked in the fields. They had mentioned cotton, but nobody told me about the cotton experience. So once
I would think that if he thinks that prison and slavery was true and so prevalent, he would have known that cotton picking was a part of sentence before he went to prison.
got out there and I saw what was going on, I did like what any normal person would do. I objected. You know, hey man, I'm not doing this shit. I'm not with this. I ain't no cotton picking niggas. And you know, and the other dudes out there looked at me like, oh, hey man, they got them one because they had a system of breaking people.
Enlighten me, when did slaves get the option to say, knowing there not be serious physical and mental consequences such as whipping, hanging, or being buck broken? So yes, slaves never had an option for anything. But if an inmate refuses anything, sometimes they are sent to lockup, or on many occasions a counseling will come. The results of refusing for inmates aren't physical or life-threatening, but refusing as a slave, the results may be life-threatening.
And making people doing exactly what they need you to do. So, yeah, it was a terrible experience, mentally demoralizing, designed to break your manhood. You know what I'm saying? Exactly what you see in slavery, but without whips. That's it.
Does he realize that whipping was one of the most effective tools to keep slaves in line?
Terrible experience, mentally demoralizing, designed to break your manhood. You know what I'm saying? Exactly what you see in slavery, but without whips. That's it.
So what on both ends of the spectrum, if you a good cotton picker, is there a reward for it? Like, so was anybody out there trying to be the best, like trying to get the most that they rewarded?
Now, listen, I'm gonna tell you, once you forced to do something, you realize, goes back to what our mamas would tell us. Our mamas were raised, right? Once you forced to do something, the best thing you could do is get good at it. I'm gonna say that again. Once you forced to do something, and you know that there's no way around doing this, the best thing to do.
As far as destroying a man's manhood, I'm guessing means being intimate. The truth of the matter is that most likely if a man becomes intimate with another man, he was most likely into that or curious about knowing that he most likely won't be judged in prison. But prison isn't something that forces this activity. And regardless of what you may think or heard, there's a large number of inmates who are willing participants. So there's no need to take anything. On top of that, male slaves were forced to have sex with other slaves. It was literally a life-death situation. Because remember, slave who refused any command was severely punished. But an inmate or many inmates go by the saying, it doesn't count in prison. This means it's kind of like Las Vegas. The saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So no officer or staff are forcing these inmates to have sex with other inmates. They commit these things because they most likely always wanted to do it, but chooses to use prison as an excuse.
We don't line everybody up, right? And as we move forward, as this large line of human beings move forward, the white turns into brown as you go through it. So we basically going through there. We got sacks on our shoulder. As you pick up the cotton out the bud, you putting it in the bag, and you go through it. By the end of the day, you will have a good 10, 12 miles of cotton pick and big bags. So as you go through the road, you get to the end of the road and your bag is full. You have to pick the bag up, throw it on your shoulders, and walk it back to the end to where a trailer could pick it up. And they gave you mattress sacks. Think of your mattress that you sleep on. You have to fill up empty mattress sacks of cotton, hand picked back then. I mean, it was brutal. We went 2 times a day. Work start at 5 o'clock in the morning. You come back in at 11, and then work come back out at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You come back in at 6 o'clock.
So they were basically given a 2-hour lunch break. And do you want to know why they give them 2-hour lunch breaks? Well, it's simple. If they didn't, it would almost be just like slavery.
Yeah, every day. For those who refused to pick that certain day or just pick it all, what was the punishment in regards?
Well, you had several punishments that you just weren't prepared for. It's your first time out there. Of course, they know you're gonna reject. So the first punishment is to lock you in what we call a steel seville. I explained this before. This is a trailer with a wire fence net around it, a chicken wire around it, and they handcuff you and they put you in the trailer as a form of security. But you would think they like gonna take you into the building. They don't. They handcuff you and they put this trailer in the middle of the cotton field. If we start working and the cotton field is 15 miles long, they put this trailer about 5 miles out, and they leave you out there sitting in the heat, handcuffed behind your back. No, it's no chair in there. Think of it as a back of a pickup bed, and that's when you will spend the first half. So if that don't break you, so let's say like for instance, I did that my first day. I was put in there. And when 11 o'clock came, they unhandcuffed me, brought me in with everybody else. When I went in, I realized if I go back out on the second half and I don't pick cotton, they're going to put me back in there, right? So I'm not volunteering to go back out to get back put in the steel seville. So I don't go out the second half.
The word options doesn't go along with the word slave or slavery.
Like, I'm not even going out there. So you would think that's the best preventive measure, not go. Well, they figured that out. I didn't go that day, so guess what? I didn't go the next day. And they give you a write-up. You know, it's a disciplinary action where they write you up. But what happens is they send you to court real fast. So you may go 2-3 days without working. And they run you through disciplinary court, and they realize that you don't want to work. The first thing they do is strip you of all your privilege and put you on cell restriction.
The first thing he stated was that he decided not to come for 2 or 3 days. Now, I'm not sure of this, but I don't think that slaves had the ability to dictate whether they went to the cotton fields or not. He also stated that the punishment was a write-up. And after that write-up, he was given the option to dispute it. Now, have any of you ever heard a slave punishment consist of anything other than some type of physical abuse? Because I haven't ever heard of anything during slavery that resembled that. A piece of paper was never involved. And most importantly, slaves didn't even know what the word dispute meant.
So every day you're not working, think of it like on the line of credit. This is building up that you're not paying. Every day you're not working, you're going deeper and deeper and deeper in the hole. And I had to finally realize after being on LOP 45 days, after being on cell restriction, not being able to come out, after losing my line class, getting took from general population to medium custody, like after going through all these steps that they put you through. Now, mind you, I haven't worked though. I went 45 days without working, but they still have put me in conditions to where they haven't made not working comfortable for me. And it has made time harder for me and it restricted me.
Yes, prison is hard for you, but that's actually what it's supposed to be. Easy and comfortable is exactly the opposite of what prison is for. But I still haven't heard any legitimate reason why or how prison is modern day slavery.
To the point to where I end up going to work. So that's one way. Still severe restrictions, right? You already have limited freedom, little to no freedom, but they make it more restricted. It's a such thing as going to jail while you're in jail, and that's solitary confinement. You know what I'm saying? So they just make it harder for you psychologically, physically. They lock you up, and then lastly, they use the inmates to break you. Meaning, like, think of it as a basketball team. if we the cotton picking Dallas Mavericks and I'm going out there fucking up the game, the niggas gonna beat you up. Yeah, the niggas gonna under you because they don't want to do the work, and you making it harder for them when they already don't want to do it. So a release from them is to go and kick your ass so they can have a victory, so to say, like so they can feel better about themselves.
I hope you realize that in general, it's the black people in prison that are kicking each other's ass. Yes, other races do also, but it's the most prevalent with black inmates. Literally every other race in prison stick together. It's easy to play the divide and conquer game with black inmates. Oh yeah, on top of all of that was fighting a common occurrence when it came to slaves. This is a serious question. Let me know in the comment section.
It's the abuse you.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's man, that right there is strategic.
It's all by design. That's why I said I don't know if I explained it right for a person that never went, but those are the methods used to make you pick cotton. Now, of course, I didn't go pick cotton the next day. After 45 days or 3 months of what they was putting me to inside the building, I'm running to get outside the building. I realized, goddamn, cotton picking ain't that bad if I gotta suffer all that.
Nah, exactly. Actually, that actually puts
His suffering was indirectly by choice.
a different spin on, for those who weren't alive during slavery times and how they probably broke slaves back then. You was on what is considered the gladiator unit, man. You was on Ferguson, of course, and the others, man. Can you explain, do you remember your first fight, real fight, and what kicked it off?
Well, before I went to Ferguson, I was on Clemens unit. Before I went to Clemens unit, I was on transfer facility. So think of it like this: you got 10 buildings, right, which are transfer facilities. They are temporary buildings built to house inmates that's gonna be moving in and out. When you get to units like Ferguson, Clemens unit, these units back in my day was called red brick units. They not 10 buildings. They are brick buildings that was built in the 1930s, the 1940s, the 1950s, right? And they are also called ID units. Ferguson ID was FE, right? That means like this is your assigned unit. You are not longer in the temporary state jail transfer facilities. You have arrived at where we're gonna house you. We finally figured out your classification, what kind of profile we gonna put you in, and you fit over here on Clemens unit. That's where I started. And then I messed up over there. They moved my profile and put me on Ferguson unit. But my first fight in prison, oh man, you kind of asked me a hard question.
Yeah, that's just making you go back.
Good or bad. Yeah, like, so my first fight in prison.
It's okay to admit if you've never had a fight in prison. I think that I would have remembered my very first in prison. I guess once you describe the prison as gladiator school, you may want to make sure people thought that you were involved.
Was a ride. My first fight in prison was a ride. I started a ride. The first time I had to physically get into it with somebody, I started a ride. And I got into it with
So a riot that you supposedly started had you stumped and thinking hard to remember. There is no inmate that been involved in a riot that to think long and hard to remember it. Because how the hell do not remember not only a riot, but your very first riot that you literally kicked off yourself?
Mexicans, and it was Hispanic. So another culture shock for me going into prison was being housed with Mexicans. Of course, black and brown people are abused in this country to the highest degree. Not only do black people suffer, Mexican people suffer also. They don't have a history of slavery.
So Hispanic people have no history of slavery. I wish they would have cut this part of the video out. Either the interviewer was just as ignorant as this man, and he simply didn't know. Or he decided to leave that part in for shits and giggles. This man said that with confidence, as if he just knew he was speaking facts. And the word suffering is a powerful word. We need to stop using this word so loosely, because there's no non-offensive way that I can phrase this for individuals who love to be offended. A majority of slaves committed no crime, whereas the punishment outcome was them becoming slaves. They were slaves just for merely existing. They didn't grow up with any options to be anything else other than becoming slaves. Men, women, and children were literally bred to be slaves. Just think about that for a moment.
But they still had the history of abuse. So it was my first time being housed and living around Mexicans. And of course, as a black man, I think our ice is colder. Yeah, straight like that. And because it was my first time in prison and being housed around Mexicans, I violated a few codes that led to an all-out ride on the unit I was on. And that was basically me confronting the Mexican about something, him reacting, and then me beating him up. And because I did that, that created a ride. They went and got more people. They went and got more Mexicans. I started fighting them, and then the blacks started helping me. And we didn't even know each other. As black people, then I had to be 18 years old, but my first fight was a ride. And that fight got me classified to go to burning hell on Clemens unit.
Well, okay. I think that's enough of that. Do you believe that prison is modern day slavery? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Even though I know that my thoughts on this topic may be unpopular, well, at least unpopular to many of the individuals that are African American, such as myself, I want to start off by saying that for some odd reason, taking accountability, and I mean full accountability for our actions, seem to be something that as black men we often struggle to do. And I say this because in this video, even though he only spoke about one prison bid, it wasn't just one. So the first question that I have to ask is why wasn't one prison bid enough for you to realize that prison isn't the place to be? How bad could it have really been for you to be a supposed slave, get free from that slavery and take your ass right back? So you have to ask yourself the question, was prison really like slavery, or is it that I want to continue to play victim? Let me point out how prison is nowhere close to being anything like slavery. Number one, slaves didn't have an option and slavery wasn't used for punishment. Blacks and any other race of people who were enslaved were captured, transported, and forced to be slaves. Children who had never done wrong to anyone were born into slavery and wore the same treatment as the adults. There's a major difference between committing crimes that bring harm to others, and as a result you're sentenced, and a part of your sentence consists of hard labor. But slaves did nothing wrong to be forced into it. They just merely existed, and that ended up being the hand that they were dealt. Slaves didn't have the option of whether they wanted to work or not. If they didn't feel like working, they were beaten into submission. The same result came if they didn't make a certain weight in the cotton that they picked. There weren't any write-ups or loss of good time. There wasn't a parole board or a sentence end date. Slaves had life sentences just for being who they were. I can go on and on all day about there's no comparison when it comes to slavery versus being a prison inmate. But I won't. I'll just leave it at this. It's extremely disrespectful to our ancestors to put those two things in the same category, especially when the prison inmate actually had a choice, if not many choices.